theme of God Rocks, because that's what the whole month is going to be about. We began this series the last week in October, and we're going to continue it right through November to Thanksgiving Sunday. And the thing that we're going to really anchor ourselves into is the fact that we are divine creatures, and so that we have been created out of this one life, and we're going to allow ourselves to really move into that realization and deepen our relationship with the divine. And just know that God rocks here at Joyful Gathering, because that's what we're going to be doing all month. We're going to be rocking. You see rocks everywhere. Rocks, rocks. It's all about rocks. The energy of rocks. We talk about the universal law a lot. The natural laws of the universe, the law of attraction, all of those immutable laws, the law of electricity. But I have a quote that I would like to read from Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, religious science. And so I'd like to begin this morning with it, where he talks about the law and also the other part. We must differentiate, he writes, between the divine presence as a universal spirit, a thing to be communed with, and the universal law, which is simply a blind force. The law is a blind force. We must daily train our thought to recognize the spirit in everything we do, say, or think. A constant realization of the presence of spirit will provide a sense of divine companionship with no other attitude could ever produce. So we've been expressing, so there's more than just the law. There is that directive force. You know, Holmes has a book. It's all love and law, and the love directs, the law follows, simply follows without judgment. So we have been expressing how God rocks. We did a talk before on it, and we've been using these rocks, and I hope anyone that hasn't been here before had an opportunity to get a rock at the front desk and write a word of gratitude on it, because we're going to keep adding it to our altar right up until Thanksgiving Sunday. And then if you've written one and you're new and you have one, just hold on to it, because after the sermon and after the offertory, we're going to have you come up and place it on an altar, which will be displayed. Joe so wonderfully displays them. They all have a word of gratitude on them. So we're going to be using that all month. So as we walk this spiritual journey, every moment is an opportunity, to grow into the deepened awareness of the power of God's presence and strength in our lives. Today we're going to explore and deepen into the importance of focusing on our rocks of G-R-O-W-T-H. That's the name of the talk, rocks of growth. So that's what we're going to talk about before anything else, And I have an illustration that I took this from a book from Steve Covey, First Things First, and the process that he talks about was way too messy, so I'm just going to do a minor illustration of it as I talk. So it's a story about an expert on time management who was speaking to a group of business students. As he stood in front of them, he pulled out a wide-mouthed glass bowl and set it on a table, in front of him. So I have it. Then he produced about half a dozen fist-sized rocks and carefully placed them one at a time into the bowl, which is what I will be doing, one at a time. Thank you, God, in the form of Chris Sandy. And so we put them in, and when the bowl was full, and there were no more rocks to place into it, he asked his class, Is this bowl full? And they all replied, yes. It's supposed to be full. Use your imagination. Smaller ones, full. Then he said, really? And he reached under a table and he pulled out a bag of gravel and he poured some gravel and shook the bowl around, and see, there was more room in that bowl for that gravel to get into. And so then he smiled and he asked the group once more, is this bowl full? And, you know, the pretty sharp students caught on and said, no. And he said, good, good. And he reached under the table and grabbed a bag of sand. And he started pouring the sand in. And the sand mixed in with the gravel and the rock. So there was still, you see, there was still more room. So once more he asked the question, is this full? And once again the class shouted, no. Then he grabbed a pitcher of water and he poured that into the bowl. And he filled it to the brim. Then he looked up at the class and he asked, now it's finally full. What do you think this illustration was about? And one very eager Beaver student raised his hand and said, no matter how busy your day is, you can always fit some more things into it. And the speaker said, no, no, that's not the point. The truth of this illustration, that this illustration teaches us, is that if you don't put the big rocks in first, all of the smaller ones will take the place, and there won't be any room for your big rocks of growth. So always put the big ones in first. Today's message is about the rocks of growth. The rocks that build our spiritual foundation. Because we want to come from, and Chris said the foundation class, which is also on our website, being offered again in the spring or late winter, something like that. You need to have the foundation, the spiritual foundation, and have big rocks of ideas to put into that foundation so that you can build up from it. And so today we're going to look at 6 ideas, 6 rocks. There are 6 big rocks in there that will help us build the foundation. And if you don't ground yourself in them first, the smaller, lesser rocks, which really are smaller, lesser ideas, will take up the space, and there won't be any room for the larger ideas that we might have, the bigger visions, the bigger desires that we might have. So what we're going to do is use the word growth as an acronym. So we start with the